So we're going to be talking about clay today, so please make sure that you have your little booklet ready, and you're going to be filling things out before we actually get into the clay. All right, here we go. So first thing, there are three types of ways that you can actually work with clay. We have pinch, which by the way, you hold it into your hand and you merge it with your fingers. Those are the only tools you have. You have slab, which is flat. Coil, which looks like snakes. And other little tips are that the clay walls that you create can't be thicker than your pinky, and the overall design has to be hollow and has to have an air hole, because if it doesn't, it won't be able to dry all the way through and it might explode. After you've built your actual clay project, you're going to want to probably add things onto it. So some ways that you can add details, is through different techniques. We have additive, which are attachments or things that pop out. Subtractive, which are negative spaces. Basically, we've carved them out. Sgraffito are things that we can scratch in, either with details or texture, or when you're actually building it, you can use a variety of coils, as you can kind of see right on here on the right side. Now, when you're working with clay, there's a couple of things you need to know. Okay, at the station, there are different tools that you can create with. The clay boards you need to work with, please pull from the bottom, at least you'll know that they're always dry, okay? Clay should be kept closed and moist. That means kind of making sure that if it's dry, spritz some water in it. Slip is watered down clay. The texture tools should not have any chunks of clay on them, okay? And the plastic bags, which are underneath the little sink. Okay, make sure you put everything back where you found it. Now, when you're cleaning up, make sure you only use that sink, okay, the clay sink. My suggestion is put your hands in the water. I know it's gross. Rinse them off with the container water, and after all the clay is done, and if you want to only at that point wash your hands in the sink, that's fine. Sink that goes down my regular sink, clay that goes down my regular sink will collect in the pipes, and that's not good, okay? And by the way, if your hands are dry, you can use some of the lotion by the station. After you're done working with all the tools and your station, okay, there's a couple of things that need you to do. Make sure that you scrape any of the extra clay off the boards. Wipe down your table. Only use the sponges. I know they're gross, over by the sink area, okay? It's okay that there are, the table is white. I just don't want dust everywhere, okay? So please don't slam the clay or, push it off all over the place. The dust can get everywhere. And if you're not done, please take one of the bags underneath the clay sink, okay? Put a damp paper towel in it, all right? And just zip it and put your name on it. And put it on one of the sides where the clay station is, and then you'll be good until the next day. When you're finished, clean up all of that stuff. Alright, so there's a variety of tools that you may use. Most of them have names on them, okay, but I'm going to kind of go over a few of them. You're going to find that there are different silverware. They're great for details and tools. There's different cutting tools that you can use. They honestly, a lot of these tools can be used for different things too. You can cut, you can smooth, you can scrape them up. All right, the sponge, you get that a little bit wet if you want to smooth things out or to kind of like moisten a little bit. We have modeling tools, which are great for small details. The loop tools are good for carving out. You have the pin tools, small little details. Okay, everything else, the one thing that you might not see in here is the rolling pin. Other than that, most things are all out there and ready for you to work with. When you put the clay together, okay, you can't just use it like Play-Doh. It's not going to happen, okay? You can't just stick it and hope that it'll stay. You actually have to join it in the correct way. So what you're going to do is called score, slip, stick, smooth. Scoring is roughing up a space. Slip is adding that wet, it's almost like glue, but it is really watered down clay, okay? Stick, press it on, merge, means all you have to do is just merge at least one side. That means to smooth it out so it looks like it's one whole piece, okay? Now, when you're working with clay, there are different stages, all right? So, as we already kind of know, slip is very, very wet clay, okay? The next one is wet. That is the stuff that we work with. It's great for building. If it's a little bit dry, might get a little crumbly, you can always add water. The next stage is called leather hard. That's when it starts drying and it gets kind of like really hard and stiff to work with, and kind of is great for carving into if you want to add little extra details in it, okay? Following after that is bone dry. This is where it gets really, really dry, okay? It's very brittle, and when it's bone dry and it's sitting on the shelves, please don't touch it, okay? Because that means it's getting ready to be fired. Bisque. Bisque means it's fired, it's rock hard. You will be able to kind of like tap on it and it will sound like kind of like tinging, which is pretty neat. Glazed means that it's been shined up really nice, okay? And don't forget, I went over that process in the intro video.
All right, so I want to just quickly update this. This looks a little different from the original video, but it's okay. What you're going to be doing for your practice, you're going to be making two little, okay? I'm not talking huge. A bowl and, a mug and a box, okay? You can kind of see two examples right here of what I'm looking for. So I'm looking for a mini mug with decorative low relief design and a handle. Remember, low relief is something that pops up or digs in, okay? And a handle. You need to take like 2 pictures of each one, all right? And then put it into Seesaw because I would like to see the inside and an example of the outside, okay? The other one is a mini box with texture and designs around it. Now remember, mini. I'm looking for no bigger than your hands, okay? Proper attachments, okay? And that it ends up in Seesaw, okay? And when you're done, just smush it and put it back in the box.
Okay, so today we're going to learn a little bit about clay. Couple of things about clay. When you're setting up your station, please make sure that you have the tablecloth on the table. Underneath, you're going to need a board, okay, a clay board. And then I'm actually going to be going through a couple of different of the tools that you're going to be using. For your practice, you are going to create 3 little items, okay? None of them you will keep. All right, so they're just for practice. My suggestion is each time you make something, ask a friend to take a picture for you in Seesaw, all right? And you can, label them a little bit later. Okay, so the amount of clay that you're gonna need is honestly not that much, okay? As you can kind of see, I've already been playing with it. It will be very drying on your hands, okay? So this is, very drying. One thing I'm going to suggest, ladies, as I learned, I forgot, take off any kind of rings, okay, and push up your sleeves. It will get a little messy. When you guys are cleaning up, you're only allowed to use the sink for the clay, all right? After you've washed off all of this, all right, and you have like no more clay on your hands, then and only then are you allowed to use the regular sinks. If you want to use soap, then that's absolutely fine. Okay, so we're going to go through a couple of quick of the tools, and then I'm going to show you the process for this, all right? So, basic tools that I have for here, okay? I'm going to go with the ones that are on the, that are available to you. Now, yes, they're kind of gross, and they got a lot of clay on them. If you could do me a favor, after you use them, just try to like wipe off that huge clumps of clay on it, okay? I know that they're not the world's best looking. I do wash them once a year, or actually try to get them once a marking period, try to clean, but they're still good. Okay, so there's a variety of tools that I have available to you, but just to let you know, you don't need all the tools, honestly, when you're working with clay. They do multiple things. So for example, although this is like a clay knife, okay, it can be used for multiple skills. Okay, so let's start off with the modeling tools. So modeling tools are these. They come in plastic and wood. I personally like the plastic, okay? They come in different shapes. They're great for just, manipulating the clay. In a little bit, I'm going to teach you how to score, okay? That's when it's roughing up. But you can kind of see that it's just good for moving clay around and reaching into spaces that it's a little bit hard to get to, okay? This is just one of those metal half moon sheets, okay? Great for cutting, okay? Good for scraping things up on the board, all right? And, they can just do different designs as well, okay? Great. The forks, the knives, and the spoons, okay? Same thing. We can press in, we can make different kind of textures with them. Can even do the other side as well. Reaching for areas, we can make, when I talk about scoring, this is good for scoring, roughing up an edge. See how fast I was able to rough up that edge, okay? The knife, same kind of deal, just cut it. and you can work with it too if you feel like you need small areas. This is fine to use. These are not sharp. It's just a metal plate. That's really it. Okay. Pin tool. These are sharp. You need to be careful. Small details. These are also great for putting in your initials, so A-R-T. If you want to write art. Okay, small details where you can't get your fingers into, these are great for. So if I wanted to carve out this, I could easily carve it out. Okay. Now, one thing that you need to know about clay is that if you wanted to carve out using this tool, okay, you would probably want your clay to harden, so you'd probably leave it out overnight, and then you could actually carve into the clay a little bit easier. Okay. Loop tools. So they come in this size and a little bit thicker, a little bit bigger, and basically they loop out the clay. Pretty cool, right? They create beautiful negative spaces. Okay. Now we're going to be talking about relief sculpture. Relief sculpture is this idea that you have highs and lows in your sculpture. Okay. So in here, I have this beautiful low now kind of happening, and we have this high space right here. Okay. Isn't that beautiful? That is beautiful. All right. Now, what other things do I have over there? Okay. I have sponges. Okay. So the sponges are great for if you're just dunked it in quick water for smoothing out spaces. Okay. So if I wanted this to be all smooth, I can smooth this out. Okay. There we are. That's beautiful. Okay, I could use this if I'm, working on my edges, or if it's really wet, okay, and I might need a little bit, some moisture. I could put some of that in and give it a texture. But, not many people use this because most of the time, when I used it, when I was in college, I used it on my pottery wheel, which I don't got, all right? Now, you'll probably see that I have stencils. Some people find that they want to create things with stencils, okay, so if they want a particular shape, they might go in and be like, oh, well, I want this shape, so I'm going to just create this shape, and you got that shape, okay? All right. Other things we have are, different things that you can press in to create texture and small details, all right? There we are. So imprints. Same thing. Lots of different things can be used. That's really cool. Okay, so you probably see things in here that are odds and ends, but as we know, that's really cool. Okay, you can do different ones. All right, everything off. There we go. Last couple things that you're going to also see over there is this stuff. Okay, this is called slip. You're going to be using it. It is mushy water and clay. Okay, this is kind of the glue that we're going to be using. So you will actually need this, plus your board, your clay, and your tablecloth. Water bottles. They're not to spray others. Okay, do not, I repeat, do not spray other people. Okay, you are not bad cats, so do not squirt each other. Okay, and last but not least, okay, is the rolling pin. Okay, now I have a couple of them. I have a couple of different sizes. I have, I think, 2 big ones, maybe 3. Okay, when you're rolling, what I would highly suggest is you're going to press down and you rock back and forth, okay, to kind of get it as flat as possible, like this. But once you're done, you don't want to press all the way down. So what happens is you get this kind of like gets thinner. You want to go and press from the inside up. Okay, so you're just pushing it out. You want the thickness, whenever you're working with clay, about the thickness of your pinky, okay? You don't want something that's too thin, all right, because then it won't dry properly. And you don't want anything too thick because it won't dry properly. Now, what is the issue with drying properly? Okay, so here, this object right here, because it's solid, all right, there is a chance of there having small little holes in here and it not drying all the way through, okay? So when it dries, imagine that the whole surface is starting to dry, okay? It's gonna take a very long time to make sure the inside gets dry. Because we have limited time here, what I'm going to suggest and I'm going to insist is that your objects are either hollow or they're completely flat. Okay? So what happens in the kiln? The kiln heats up very hot, okay? Makes this whole, while it's waiting to get to the kiln, it's drying. Then the kiln goes in and it starts baking the outside, okay? If yours is still wet on the inside because for some reason yours was really thick, okay? When we touched it, it was super dry. But in here, so let's say this little space right here, okay, was still somewhat wet. Okay? What happens is the outside becomes a shell. And inside, the moisture is caught in there. Okay? And if this is heating up and the moisture needs to come out, okay, because you're like, what's going to happen? This will explode. Okay? So if I find anything that is solid and thicker than my pinky, it doesn't happily end up in the kiln. I don't care how long it's, waiting for, I will say, out. Okay, so please make sure that your stuff that you're working with is no thicker than your pinky, even your thickest areas, which I'll show you. Okay, all right. So let's work on a slab. We're just going to work on building up some stuff. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to roll out a little bit of a slab. So this is a slab, which is a flat piece of clay. Okay, in order to build up anything, okay, we're going to make a coil, or we're going to make whatever object, or you know what? Let's just design something. Let's make a swoosh. Ooh. Okay, so flatten it out. Make some kind of something. Okay, so I'm gonna add that here. All right, and I'm gonna cut that off. So here's the one thing about this. This clay is not like Play-Doh. Okay, so I cannot stick it and say, that's it. Okay, what you need to do is called score and slip, stick, and smooth. So what we do is we rough up the area, okay? Because what we're doing is we're almost like creating it so it's gonna hook into it like this, all right? That slip, that icky, gross stuff, all right? We're putting this is our glue. So what's gonna happen is when I push it in, that beautiful slip is going up into the cracks and it's going to hold. So when it dries, it's going to stick. So we got slip, stick, and smooth. This doesn't mean smooth on the outside. This means smooth your edges. So you want to grab like a tool, like possibly like a modeling tool, and you go around the edge and you just make sure that it's all smoothed in. Okay? So it looks like one solid piece. All right? Beautiful. Smooth that. All right. So this is one way of creating a relief sculpture, is to build up by adding areas with, just building up with coils or just solid areas of clay. Now the question is, what happens? This is a little bit thicker. Well, on the other side, we just got to carve out a little bit. So it's not so thick, okay? So you just kind of, gauge it on the other side. So it's not too beautiful. Okay? Which is fine. Other ways are carving downwards, okay? So I can carve this up. I can also carve this down. So when we carve out things, we create negative spaces, okay? So this would be a negative space, okay? Other things might be carving right in. So you have open spaces toward the bottom, okay? We can also take down a little bit. So it's not all the way through. You just have several layers. Okay, so if I want to carve this through, all right, all of a sudden you start getting these cool designs going up and down. All right, so with clay, we can build up, we can bring down, okay? You can also add in textures. Okay, so by handmade stuff, if I have things, I can add texture with it. I can create texture by myself. Okay, so let's say I have, you know, some tool and I want to make some rough textures here. It's absolutely fine. Okay, so that's building. That's basic building with clay. Now, how do we make actual containers? All right, let me mush it up. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make a little container that's made of just slabs. Okay, now this is starting to get a little wet, so excuse me, a little dry. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put a little moisture in it. I don't want it to be too wet, okay, because what will happen is it'll start to stick. And all of this right here, because my clay was a little too sticky in the beginning, too wet, it started to stick, all right? Okay, so we're gonna start off with a couple slabs, all right? Let's take that, press it out. Now, one thing you're probably noticing that I'm not doing is I'm not slamming the actual clay onto the board. Clay has a lot of little particles in it, okay, dust particles, so you don't want it to kind of go airborne, all right? We've got a lot of people who have allergies, sinus issues, I'm sure. I know I do, okay, and we don't want to aggravate anyone's, sinuses. All right, so I want to make 5 little walls, okay? Make a base. So I'm gonna have a base. My base is going to be rectangle. There we go. Okay. All right. So I've got a wall here. This is gonna come up. Beautiful. Make another wall. Okay. All right. Nice. Okay, and then I need something to make my other side. So I'm gonna just measure this out. Yeah, notice we're doing a little bit of math. It's kind of fun. You're like, does that actually match up? Holy cannolis, it matches up. Okay, and then I'm gonna make another one of this. All right, so when you're building with slabs, you do the same kind of thing that I was telling you when you build up. You got a slip stick score, stick smooth. Oh my gosh. Sometimes it's hard to remember all these words. But if you forget, honestly, if you go back to the clay station, okay, it's there, all right? So I want this side. Magic glue. There you go. That's gross. Stick it. Okay. Smooth. So it looks like one ledge. There we go. And don't forget the bottom. A lot of people forget that there's a bottom. Okay. All right. Get a little bit more over there. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm using the fork. Well, when I went to college, that's what I had. That was my budget. Dollar store forks. And it totally worked. Ceramics, so it went fine. Okay. Now we gotta do the other sides. Now this one has a little bit more space, so we're gonna look at that. Make that rough this up. Now right now this is just a small itty bitty thing, okay, which is fine, because it's just a practice. As you get more confident with clay, you can build up a little bit more, you know. Your project does not need to be this big or this small. There is a size requirement for your project, so I would check that out when you're planning your project, okay? Stick that on up, okay? Now, for this one, all right, I'm gonna, for now, you do this side. I'm just gonna stick this here, okay? Now, what would happen if I did this? When it dries off, this would come off, okay? This would break. If I was making a top, okay, what I would highly suggest is you would make your top, okay, and you would let it dry separately, all right? Actually, I kind of want to get a little funky with this. I don't know. You're like, what are you doing? I don't know. I'm having fun. There we go. Sometimes you just have to have a little fun. I don't even know what that is. I don't know. It's fun. Okay. So we can pull it in now. You're going to make a little container for your practice, okay? First thing, by the way, will be a tile. Make a small little tile. And check the practice to see what you need to make for that. Check your paper, okay? You're going to make a small box, all right? So that will be that. And last one, you need to make a little coil pot. All right, I know it's so sad when we have to mush them. So coil pot. So we have the slab. Slab was pretty easy. Coil is actually pretty easy too, because all it is a whole bunch of coils, all right? Now when you're doing coils, you need to use your whole hand, okay? I'm gonna move everything out, and you're going back and forth. Okay, back and forth. Open and close your fingers, okay? You want about the thickness of your pinky, not too thin. I'm gonna go back and forth. You don't want anything longer than your board, okay? So what I tend to do is I kind of do a couple of coils, get them pre-made, okay? So all I have to do is just bing, bang, boom, right? You're like, oh my gosh, that's such weird. I know. Now you'll notice that this is kind of might be cracking. It is okay. So if that is, add a little bit of water, okay? Be a little slimy, but you know, the more you move your clay around, the more it's gonna get less water on it. Now for coil pots, okay, what I would highly suggest is you start with a base that has a shape already, okay? So I'm gonna, what's my pin tool, people? Okay, I'm gonna make a little circle. Okay, same deal, okay? You have to score. Now this one, I'm gonna start at the top. Maybe something else did good. All right. Just rough that up. Same kind of thing. You put your magic slip on. By the way, if you ever run out, you can make magic slips too. I know, look at that. We're gonna teach cooking too. All you have to do is just add some water, put your clay in there, okay? And then you made slip. Now, you can do one of two things. We can cut this off and do a ring around, or you can continue going with your coil until it's all the way through. Now, this is where the long tools come in, because you gotta smooth them out. Okay, so you just go in, you smooth them out. Honestly, this makes, why do we smooth them out? Why don't we see the rings? Well, you can see the rings. You can smooth out this whole thing. This makes it easier to build upward, okay? I actually built a really huge vase back in college. I don't even know where it is now. All with coils, and why wouldn't I use an actual slab? You know, you can, but the problem is after a while, slab becomes very flimsy and it doesn't hold its shape. So if you build up with coil, it's a lot easier. Okay. All right. So I'm going to do one more little layer. Okay. I'm going to put this right here. Just want to stick that in there. Perfect. This is so relaxing. Oh my gosh. There we are. Smooth. Ooh, this is so soft, this clay. I'm able to smooth it with just my fingers. Beautiful. Okay, so how to deal with a handle or feet. Okay, so if you're making feet, I would suggest that, you try to make some even feet, all right? All right. And you do the same thing. Score, slip, stick, and smooth on your feet, okay? So they are on. If you're making a handle, you don't have to make a boring handle. You can get creative. I would highly suggest that you create something that hooks, okay, inside, so it kind of smooths it out. So make sure that you score, slip, and stick and smooth. I know, I totally just didn't do that. But I want to kind of keep this video short. Score. There you go. Okay, and then we smooth this. Look how cute that is, people. Let me get really close on here. Okay. Here we are. I'm gonna mush this to where I want it. Little cup. How cute is that? Ridiculously cute. Okay. All right. So, any other tips do I have for this? When you clean up, if you're the last person using the clay, do me a favor. Take, your water bottle, okay, and spray a couple times into the clay bin to just kind of keep it kind of wet, all right? Remember that you cannot use the regular sink. You have to use the clay sink because this would all settle onto the bottom of the pipes in my regular sink, okay? So you kind of need to let them go. All spare clay goes back into the bucket, okay? If it ever goes low, just let me know and I will add more clay to it, okay? And then, yes, just make sure you kind of clean off the chunks off the board. There's a lot of dust on your tablecloth. Do me a favor, just take it and put it into the garbage and shake it out, okay, so it's not all over the place. And make sure you fold, yes, fold the tablecloth and put it away. And that's it. Oh, wait a minute, storage. Okay, storage of this, all right? If you're working on it, make sure it goes into a bag and you can put it on the bottom shelf over in the clay area, okay? Right behind the clay station, there's a little shelf, okay? When you're done, all right, it's finished, it's done, you're not doing it anymore, your name is on the bottom, you've scored it on, okay? So we have SS, okay? So that would be my initials. It goes on the top two, start in the back, place the back, and then work front, and then don't touch it until it's been fired. All right, and that's all I've got.